Okay, I'll take a few questions. Yes.
Hi, Mayor. Can you tell us what you're trying to do to salvage the RFK bill on the Hill right now while it's in jeopardy?
Well, what's in jeopardy is the continuing resolution. And the continuing resolution, let's just be clear, it keeps the government open past tomorrow at midnight. So I'm hopeful that all of our officials are laser focused on not closing the federal government 5 days before Christmas or at any time. We don't know what way they'll go. They can close it. They could have a slimmed down CR. They could have the exact same CR. And our message is the same, that the transfer of the RFK site to the district removes blight from the nation's capital. It allows, let me be clear, the legislation contains no federal funding for the transfer of the land. In fact, the legislation expressly prohibits the use of federal funds for the land. Let me also be clear. The district currently controls RFK for the next 14 years. We have a lease for RFK. We control it right now. What the legislation gives us is administrative control of the land for 99 years. And why is that important? It's important because in order for our taxpayers to be able to invest in that land, infrastructure, tearing down the stadium, remediation, and a multiple of development options, we have to be able to finance it. And 14 years is not long enough to finance it. And you can just look to all of the other major construction projects that we've done, and we've had similar financing. This legislation also removes the restriction that the current lease also has, which says this can only be used for sports or recreation, like the stadium, the blighted stadium that's there. No federal funds. D.C.'s taxpayers, Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, local Washingtonians want to step in the place of the Park Service to remove this blight from the nation's capital and invest in it to bring it to productive use. That's what's at stake in this CR for the district, among other things. Yes.
We're starting to still see, though, from Congress, the same thing we were seeing back during Tony Williams' administration. The call to remove BLM Plaza, again, from a member of Congress, saying that Congress has the ultimate authority over D.C. Is this a trend that you are bracing yourself for now with the new Congress and new administration coming in?
Listen, we've been planning for the transition. We're supportive of the transition and the inaugural staff for President-elect Trump to get ready for his January 20th inauguration. And we plan to work in common goals with the administration and looking for ways to do that. I think what we're talking about today is how the Congress is going to operate, and this CR is very important to keep the government open.
How frustrating is it that this misinformation has been circulating on X just over the past 24 hours for you?
Well, it's very frustrating, but I have to say I've seen a lot of members of the media fact-checking it and fact-checking it quickly. So good work and keep it up. To your point, it was stated that this CR contains $3 billion for a stadium. All wrong. There are no federal dollars related to the transfer of RFK. And in fact, the legislation does not require or link at all to a stadium. So we're talking about how the district can invest in removing blight. Yes.
Is there a path forward without a CR for the RFK transfer for the city?
I don't know if there's another path this session. And the other point I want to make is this. This has not been a last-minute, behind-the-scenes discussion. The legislation to transfer this land was introduced by a Republican in Congress in March or April of 2023. It has had no less than 3 public hearings. It has been voted out of 2 committees in the House, 2 in the House and 1 in the Senate, 3 committees. This is not a behind-the-scenes, non-transparent process. Everybody has been clear that we, the district, have followed regular order. It has followed regular order in the Senate, and this was identified as the vehicle to get the measure to the full Senate. Yes.
Beatrice Peterson, ABC News. Earlier, Councilmember Pinto said that we might be reaching the lowest violent crime rate in 20 years.
Correct.
Can I get your reaction to that?
Well, it has been a partnership, I think, and Councilmember Pinto has been an incredible leader in this. Some months ago now, we stood together and said we have to right-size, rebalance our public safety ecosystem, and that's exactly what we've done. We've moved some very significant legislation that holds people accountable who are using guns in our city. And as a result, we have seen not only a major decrease from last year, in every category, in almost every category, we are below 2019 numbers. So we have gone back to the place with crime where people weren't talking about crime every day or feeling unsafe. And we're particularly focused, as you know, on crimes with guns, on carjacking and robbery. And those numbers are down quite significantly. Okay, I'm going to take a few more. You haven't asked a question. You haven't asked a question. One here, and then Megan, you can have the last. Yes.
Mayor, Matt Delaney with the Washington Times. Completely off topic, but the D.C. Council passed a bill earlier this week to study the potential for reparations in the city. I was curious if you plan on signing that bill and what your thoughts are on it.
I'll take a look at it. I haven't gotten all of the bills from the council since this last meeting, so I'll take a look at it. Yes.
Afternoon, Mayor Felicia, ABC 7. I know when we previously spoke, you mentioned your challenges or disputes with the Road Act. It was recently passed this week. We also saw with the case with Reggie Brown that they had to postpone a sentencing because of issues with not evaluating the girl. So with this act being passed this week and still seeing this challenge, what is your thoughts on actually making some progress within DYRS and some changes?
Well, first of all, I'm grateful for the leadership of Sam Abbott, who is more than 20-year expert in youth rehabilitation services. And I invite policymakers to follow his lead and make sure DYRS has the resources that it needs. We are very committed to making sure young people who are going through the system have all the help that they need to rehabilitate. The specific case that you mentioned, I don't want to comment on that specifically, but I will say this, that some of our young people who are most troubled and need the most significant supports and services, we typically look for placements for them. And part of the reason why we push back so hard on the council about placements is we have to work in the system of the availability of spots for our kids. And that is not always 100% in our control. So our commitment is to make sure the kids are being rehabilitated no matter where they are until we find the right placement for them. Yeah.
Mayor, can I just follow up on some of that false information that was spreading? Considering the influence that President Trump is wielding on the CR right now, have you reached out to anyone in his administration to try to correct some of those false impressions about what the RFK bill will do?
Yes, I have.
Can you elaborate at all on how that's going?
Well, Megan, I don't want to talk about specific conversations, but usually in this situation, there are 4 players on a CR. Now there are more players on the CR. So we're just going to adapt to the landscape. If there are 6 players or 7 players, we're going to try to talk to everybody that is impacting this decision. But I have to leave on this note. that this CR is about keeping the government open. I can't comment on all of the things because I just don't know them in detail. But it requires some faith in, good faith negotiating among the people involved. So I hope that all of the leaders recognize that we need to keep the government open. I'm sure there are a lot of worthy projects attached to this CR, but we want to keep the government open, and we don't want to start all over. We've done all we're supposed to do, and this is the vehicle that has been identified and agreed to by Democrats and Republicans. This is a bipartisan piece of legislation that transfers land for a longer period of time that we already control, that will allow D.C. residents. Have you been to RFK, anybody? 177 acres, surrounded by asphalt, in a stadium that hasn't been used in 10 years. That is a blight on the nation's capital. Now, I agree with the president-elect on this point. We want to make our nation's capital the most beautiful capital in the world. So we have to move and free RFK. Thank you, everybody.